Let's go. Yo. This is weird. Alright. Let's watch some Y-Files. Shout out to them.
Of all the species that have ever existed on Earth, 99% of them are gone. Most of those were wiped out during what are known as mass extinction events. Since life emerged on our planet, there have been 5 mass extinctions. Sometimes these events last many years, but sometimes a mass extinction can happen very, very suddenly. Some scientists think we're on the verge of a 6th mass extinction. Others think it's already begun. But the question everybody asks is there anything we can do to stop it? Okay, now what?
Oh, thank Neptune you answered. I need you on my 6.
Oh, I'm kind of busy here, pal.
Then you leave me no choice.
What? No, you wouldn't.
I'm calling in my marker.
Oh, come on, that was 8 years ago.
Huh, let's see what your wife thinks.
Okay, fine. I'm rolling now. Give me 30 seconds. Okay, where are you? Drop a pin.
I'm in Doom Tower. The Suuuhhhh is leaking back into the world, and the guy's in here. It's
About.
answer the call.
Wait,
Get your butt in this game, pick a champion, and help me out here.
hold on. Is this today's sponsor?
Yep, it's a super cool, super detailed, tactical RPG made called the Arbiter is their new limited series, out now, and to celebrate, Raid has added some characters from the show as new playable champions. One of them, Artak, you can get for free just by logging into the game for 7 days between now and July 24th. And if you join now by clicking the link and scanning the QR code, you'll get a free starter pack with an epic champion Drake and his cool in-game loot.
Okay, I'm joining now, but seriously, where are you? How in the world? Okay, pal, hang on, I'm coming.
Now first we gotta do our battle cry. Yahtzee!
I'm not doing that.
Oh, come on, Yahtzee!
Yahtzee.
Yahtzee!
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 Now you're ready.
The Earth is always changing. There's the climate, there's... Excuse me?
Oh, I've been hearing this for years.
No, that's not
Hey,
what I've...
if the climate gets colder, you'll be fine.
Why's that?
Because you're covered in wool.
Oh, because I'm a...
Yeah. First, Al Gore told me that in 5 years, the polar bears would be sunburned and everything would be underwater. That was 30 years ago.
You're missing
I
my-
can't drive an SUV, but oh sure, those big shots can take their private jets to Davos so they can wag their finger in my face.
I'm not saying...
Drive an electric car. It's green. Okay, fine. Where do you think the electric comes from? The electric fairy? It comes from coal. You want more clean energy? Build nuclear plants, you moron.
You're not-
It's a scam. I can't believe you're still falling for this.
My point is, man-made or not, the climate is always changing.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah, sorry. I gotta stay off Twitter for a while.
That's always a good idea. It's not just the climate of the Earth that's changing, but also the core within the Earth, as well as the ground beneath our feet. The science of earthquakes is called seismology, but seismology is not an exact science. Seismologists and geologists think they know how earthquakes work and what causes them, but they're not able to predict them with any consistency. If they could, they would. Let's add up the deaths from 3 large, fairly recent earthquakes. The 1976 Tangshan earthquake in China, the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, the 2010 Haiti earthquake. On the low end, those 3 events killed 700,000 people, but that number is probably closer to 1.2 million. Let that sink in for a minute. It's important. Those aren't numbers. Those are people. They're infants, the elderly, entire families. In one day, 1 million people are just gone. You would think that mainstream science would be open to new ideas that could help predict these disasters. You would think they would entertain alternative theories that could save millions of lives. You would think so, but you would be wrong. The history of science is filled with alternative theories that were once ridiculed but are now accepted. The idea of continental drift was called nonsense. An asteroid impact killing the dinosaurs was called science fiction. At one time, if you said the Earth orbits the sun, the church might seize your property and throw you in prison. Things haven't changed all that much. A mass extinction is defined as an event where at least 75% of species on Earth are wiped out. There's evidence of 5 major mass extinctions that have occurred throughout Earth's history. The first was 450 million years ago. Another was 375 million years ago. The most catastrophic extinction, known as the Great Dying, took place 252 million years ago. During the Great Dying, a staggering 96% of all life on Earth was wiped out. Another event was 201 million years ago, and 66 million years ago was the infamous KT asteroid impact, which killed off the dinosaurs. On average, these mass extinctions happen about every 75 million years. While some causes of these events have been identified, some remain a mystery. In addition to the major extinctions, many smaller events have also occurred. For centuries, scientists have been debating what causes these events and changes to the Earth. There are 2 camps. There are the gradualists or uniformitarians. They argue that Earth changes occur slowly over an extended period, like mountains being formed slowly as rock is pushed up from the Earth's mantle. Then those mountains are slowly weathered away by erosion. In the other camp are catastrophists. They claim that Earth changes happen quickly and through dramatic events. Events like asteroid impacts, widespread volcanic eruptions, pole shifts, and massive solar flares. In other words, the scary stuff. Throughout history, catastrophists have been ridiculed by the gradualists, but there's mounting evidence to suggest that catastrophists may be onto something.
We're live watching another live.
No.
She's not in the urinal.
You never know these days.
All right. A harp version of Shook Me All Night Long and a video of Uranus jokes. I hate technology sometimes.
What'd you say? Oh, I forgot. Are you on my? Yeah, I was. Is it still there? Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Because I can't access it right now. I don't know why. Okay. Yeah, boy. Wait, is there anybody? Huh? Let's react to some. I don't know. Just keep watching this, I guess.
To something. Researchers like Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, and many others have presented compelling arguments that Earth changes happen suddenly rather than over eons.
Here what you have to visualize is a tsunami sweeping over the land that's over 1,000 feet deep. Wow.
There are recent events that support these claims. In January 2023, seismic data published by Chinese scientists hinted at a recent slowdown or even a halt in the rotation of the Earth's core. The Earth's core is huge, about the size of Mars. It's made of an inner core, which is mostly solid iron, and the outer core, which is molten iron and nickel. The interaction between the inner and outer core produces a geodynamo, which generates the Earth's magnetic field. If the core slows down or stops, the consequences would be severe. In another episode, I described exactly what would happen. There's a link below, but I have to warn you, it's terrifying. But after the initial disaster resulting from a pole shift, animals and even technology could adapt. But there is a theory that the speed and direction of the Earth's core affect more than the magnetic field. The theory says core changes are linked to more devastating events, like earthquakes. And if this theory is right, life on Earth is about to become very different. Jim Birkeland was a professional geologist who worked for the United States Geological Survey, or USGS. He became prominent in the 1980s when he started making specific predictions about upcoming earthquakes. He first came to the public's attention on October 13th, 1989. That day, he gave an interview where he predicted a major earthquake would hit Northern California between October 14th and October 21st of that year.
While the Bay Area is rumbling with excitement over the first ever Bay Bridge World Series, the Earth may be putting on a show. A county geologist is predicting an earthquake to hit the Bay Area anytime from tomorrow to the 21st of October. It will be the World Series quake, according to Santa Clara County geologist Jim Birkeland. The trembler, he predicts, could be anywhere from 3.5 to 6.0 on the Richter scale. Birkeland is basing his prediction on the unusual gravitational pull of the moon and Earth.
Birkeland was right. The 6.9 magnitude earthquake occurred on October 17th, just 4 days later, and right in the middle of Birkeland's window, and right in the middle of the World Series.
Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what,
It's like splitting apart.
After that, Birkeland was told by government officials to stop making predictions because he might create a mass panic. At the time, he was working as a geologist for Santa Clara County, but 2 weeks after his prediction, he was suspended from his job. But he didn't stop making predictions. He successfully called the Northridge earthquake that hit San Francisco in 1994. And he predicted a large earthquake in Seattle. After that, he was asked to leave his job. But people were still interested in how he was making his predictions. Birkeland believed that gravitational forces and tidal stresses from the moon played a role in triggering earthquakes. His predictions factored in high tides, new and full moons. He also noticed a correlation between seismic activity and animal behavior. His theory was magnetic fields fluctuate just before a quake, which causes these behavioral changes, especially in fish, birds, dogs, and cats. Mainstream geologists reject all of this and say that Birkeland's predictions are not scientific. They say earthquakes are caused by pressure within the Earth's crust. And when that pressure is released as energy, we get an earthquake. But that's like saying an earthquake is when the ground shakes. It's a description, not an explanation. What's causing the release of the pressure? Meteorologist Kevin Martin of the Southern California Weather Authority also wanted to know this answer. He thought there could be a connection between earthquakes, weather, and solar activity. He made a prediction in 2009.
In fact, during the Northridge quake of 1994, a large ridge of high pressure was caught in the
To something. Researchers like Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Robert Schoch, John Anthony West, and many others have presented compelling arguments that Earth changes happen suddenly rather than over eons.
Here, what you have to visualize is a tsunami sweeping over the land that's over 1,000 feet deep. Wow.
There are recent events that support these claims. In January 2023, seismic data published by Chinese scientists hinted at a recent slowdown or even a halt in the rotation of the Earth's core. The Earth's core is huge, about the size of Mars. It's made of an inner core, which is mostly solid iron, and the outer core, which is molten iron and nickel. The interaction between the inner and outer core produces a geodynamo, which generates the Earth's magnetic field. If the core slows down or stops, the consequences would be severe. In another episode, I described exactly what would happen. There's a link below, but I have to warn you, it's terrifying. But after the initial disaster resulting from a pole shift, animals and even technology could adapt. But there is a theory that
allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what,
after that, Birkeland was told by government officials to stop making predictions because he might create a mass panic. At the time, he was working as a geologist for Santa Clara County, but 2 weeks after his prediction, he was suspended from his job. But he didn't stop making predictions. He successfully called the Northridge earthquake that hit San Francisco in 1994, and he predicted a large earthquake in Seattle. After that, he was asked to leave his job. But people were still interested in how he was making his predictions. Birkeland believed that gravitational forces and tidal stresses from the moon played a role in triggering earthquakes. His predictions factored in high tides, new and full moons. He also noticed a correlation between seismic activity and animal behavior. His theory was magnetic fields fluctuate just before a quake, which causes these behavioral changes, especially in fish, birds, dogs, and cats. Mainstream geologists reject all of this and say that Birkeland's predictions are not scientific. They say earthquakes are caused by pressure within the Earth's crust. And when that pressure is released as energy, we get an earthquake. But that's like saying an earthquake is when the ground shakes. It's a description, not an explanation. What's causing the release of the pressure? Meteorologist Kevin Martin of the Southern California Weather Authority also wanted to know this answer. He thought there could be a connection between earthquakes, weather, and solar activity. He made a prediction in 2009.
In fact, during the Northridge quake of 1994, a large ridge of high pressure was carved in the exact same spot one will be during our next Santa Ana wind event. The window for that is January 9th to the 14th. This is exactly in geologist Jim Birkeland's window. So, any bets on the table for a larger quake would be during that window. Now, I'm not saying to my viewers to run because a Northridge-style quake is coming, but I must say the pattern is nearly identical to it. And if weather patterns are any indication of a quake delivery, then always be prepared. In light of Mr. Birkeland's window falling in this weather pattern, I have taken the measure to prepare in case a quake hits. You always have to be prepared.
Kevin Martin and Jim Birkeland were both right. On January 9th, 2009, there were 2 earthquakes in almost exactly the place where they predicted. Birkeland's model gained further support as the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami earthquake and the 2023 Turkey earthquake occurred during full moons. Mainstream geologists like to point out that Birkeland was occasionally wrong, both in the intensity and timing of his predictions. But he was also frequently right. And how many earthquake predictions have mainstream geologists made that have been right?
0.
0. Birkeland's success and mainstream science's lack of success indicates that our thinking about what causes earthquakes is incomplete. If there are other factors, why aren't they being explored? Is it because mainstream scientists are afraid of being wrong? Or maybe scientists are afraid of something else? On September 3rd, 2017, the United States Geological Survey reported an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.3 not far from a North Korean nuclear test site. South Korean authorities said the earthquake seemed to be artificial, consistent with an underground nuclear test. North Korea confirmed that it had detonated a 15-kiloton hydrogen bomb, and this came as a terrifying surprise to the diplomatic, intelligence, and defense communities.
Would you say it sent shock waves through the world?
I would, but
This test was a seismic shift in the region that rocked the foundations of diplomacy?
Puns, great.
Oh, so this test shook the world to its core and had other countries quaking in their boots?
You done?
I got a few more, actually.
I swear I will wring your...
Okay. I'll stop. You know I only do that to see the look in your stupid face, right?
Real nice.
Hey, let me ask you. Is it irony that I'm the fish, but you're the one that keeps taking the bait?
That's it. No one had suspected that North Korea had reached that level of advancement with its nuclear weapons program. Then, just a few weeks later, in October 2017, the entire underground Korean nuclear facility collapsed after a massive earthquake. More than 200 people were killed, including most of North Korea's nuclear scientists. Within a few months, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said his country was open to discussing peace with South Korea and the United States, and the possibility of giving up its nuclear weapons program. In June, a new peace treaty was signed. After his nuclear lab and top scientists were killed in that earthquake, Kim Jong-un had no choice but to negotiate. That worked out nicely for the United States. But what if the earthquake and destruction of the nuclear facility wasn't a natural event? What if the earthquake was caused by a new type of weapon? For years, rumors swirled that the United States had developed a highly advanced sonic weapon. Using sound waves, it could superheat the Earth's upper atmosphere and communicate with military units and submarines at sea. It could alter the weather, and yes, believe it or not, induce earthquakes. The weapon is known as HAARP.
HAARP?
Yes, HAARP.
Oh, the club for old people.
No, that's something else.
Ah.
HAARP stands for High Amplitude Active Auroral Research Program. It's a program that researches the ionosphere, the upper layer of the atmosphere, which ranges from about 30 miles to 600 miles above the Earth's surface. According to the original HAARP website, there is an emphasis on being able to enhance communications and surveillance systems for both civilian and defense purposes.
Surveillance using the ionosphere? That doesn't sound good.
Well, that's why there are a lot of rumors about HAARP. The HAARP website acknowledged that experiments were conducted to fire directed beams of energy in order to temporarily excite a limited area of the ionosphere. Now, disturbing the ionosphere could have major and even disastrous consequences for the environment. HAARP was very active in the days and hours leading up to Hurricane Katrina making landfall in 2005. Hurricanes are energized by heat. The specific function of HAARP is to heat or energize the upper atmosphere. Now, did HAARP affect the hurricane? Well, we don't know. Could it have? Sure. Later that same year, HAARP was intensely active when Hurricane Ophelia started behaving in strange ways. It changed directions multiple times against all normal meteorological predictions. It was almost as if something was playing around with Ophelia to see if they could manipulate its intensity and direction. In 2008, a rare July hurricane named Bertha suddenly formed off the coast of Africa. It was a very low-level storm, but then the HAARP transmitters fired up. Within 8 hours, Bertha went from a weak Category 1 to an intense Category 4 storm. Almost as soon as HAARP was shut down, Bertha calmed down and weakened. Kevin Martin had already made the connection between electrical storms, high-pressure systems, and weather in earthquake events. Jim Birkeland showed that tidal forces and gravitational effects were connected to earthquakes. But could a device like HAARP be capable of doing both? Well, that had yet to be tested until 2008. Cyclone Nargis began just a few days after HAARP resumed activity at 5:45 in the morning on April 27, 2008. On April 28th, the storm was basically stationary. By April 29th, Nargis had sustained winds of 100 miles per hour and began moving. It turned rapidly eastward, intensified, and reached peak winds of 135 miles an hour. On May 2nd, it made landfall at maximum strength. It maintained winds of at least 80 miles an hour for hours before it dissipated. The HAARP energy activity continued for days. It finally stopped late in the day on May 11th. About 8 hours later in Chengdu, China, there were reports of strange animal behavior. Iridescent glowing clouds suddenly appeared. Now, if you drew a straight line from Nargis's path as it made landfall, you'd hit Chengdu. Suddenly, a massive earthquake hit Chengdu with a magnitude of 8.0 and caused a chain reaction of explosions in the Shuan Mountains. These explosions destroyed the Chinese Army's largest armory and their newest weapons test bases. Nuclear facilities that reportedly included several nuclear warheads were also severely damaged. After carefully analyzing the seismic data, Experts said the energy released was equivalent to that of an underground nuclear explosion. They claimed that non-geological shock had occurred at the earthquake epicenter.
Non-geological?
Unnatural.
Uh-oh.
Over those 2 weeks, the Nargis cyclone and Chengdu earthquake claimed the lives of more than 160,000 people and severely damaged China's military infrastructure. Today, HAARP is still in use and is run by the University of Alaska Fairbanks, but that's relatively new. Prior to 2014, it was under the direct control of the United States Department of Defense. Now, all of this is speculation and rumor, and of course, the US military and government say that HAARP is nothing more than a radio tower to monitor the ionosphere. But it cost $300 million to build in 1993. That's almost $700 million in today's dollars.
That's an awful lot of scratch for a radio tower.
It sure is. There's so much more to talk about regarding the HAARP project, and it needs its own video, so if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments. Now, whether by controlling the weather or deploying nuclear weapons, the human race certainly has the ability to destroy all civilization on Earth. But even with all that technology and firepower, it's not enough to kill off 75% of all life on Earth. A true extinction-level event of that magnitude is not going to come from here. It's going to come from out there. There are a lot of interesting numeric coincidences in astronomy. For instance, the moon's diameter is 2,160 miles. That's just the right diameter, and the moon is just far enough away to create nearly perfect solar eclipses. 2,160 years also happens to be the exact length of each astronomical age in the precession of equinoxes. Earth's cycle of precession, the arc around which the North Pole wobbles, moves about 1 degree every 72 years. This completes a full cycle called the Great Year, or the cycle of precession, in 25,920 years, or about 26,000 years. According to best estimates, the sun resides 26,000 light years from the center of the galaxy. One orbit of the solar system around the center of the galaxy takes about 260 million years. What we see are called decimal harmonics of the number 26 over and over again. Now, most scientists would agree that these numbers are meaningless, they're just a coincidence. But what if they're not? What if they're trying to tell us something very important about our future? There are a collection of experiments that may show that these numbers have some kind of special meaning. When physicists can't explain things seen through telescopes, theories have to be created. Some of these theories are based on math and can explain quite a bit. But sometimes the math doesn't work, and the theories get more creative. One example of this is the phenomenon of dark matter. The idea of dark matter comes from scientists who agreed that they found a connection between mass, the physical stuff, and gravity. But a problem began when they started looking at other stars and galaxies and got clearer and clearer images. There just isn't enough stuff to create enough gravity to hold everything together. Galaxies and solar systems should be flying apart based on all the energy and momentum they're generating. So instead of simply abandoning the idea that there was a direct connection between mass and gravity, they came up with a new idea, dark matter. The gravity is obviously out there, so all this missing matter must also be out there. It's just invisible. We can't see it or detect it with any type of instrument.
Oh, so there's no proof of dark matter?
None. And there are plenty of experiments that show there are other forces at work in the universe that mainstream physicists aren't accounting for. In the days before communication satellites, shortwave radio was crucial for long-distance communication.
How long have you been live? 30 minutes. 30:07.
Proof of dark matter?
None. And there are plenty of experiments